Welcome to FSHD Straight Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into living with FSHD. I'm your host, Tim Hollenbach, and I'm on the journey with you. Having FSHD, I understand the challenges it brings to patients and their families. We're in this together, and this podcast is a space where we swap stories, share advice, and talk to experts to get the latest news. There's plenty to say about living with FSH muscular dystrophy, so let's get straight to it. Welcome all to FSHD Straight Talk as we highlight Thanksgiving, things to be thankful for. And within these episodes, we love to talk to musicians, people with that amazing talent that have FSHD, but continue to showcase their talent regardless. And today we have Gracie on. How are you doing, Gracie?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. So where are we getting you recording from? Where are you at?
I am calling in from Kansas City, Missouri.
Nice. Now, is that your hometown or just where you reside now?
Just where I reside now. Yeah. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida, but I moved to Kansas City about 3 years ago now.
Okay. And you have FSHD,
yes,
like so many of us? Yeah. When were you diagnosed with it?
I was diagnosed a few months before my 10th birthday.
Okay. Wow. So when early onset, so to speak, and was there like something physical that was happening that was obvious that there was something up? That held the path?
I had shown several signs growing up, just being clumsier than my siblings and having some of the scapular winging and signs in my face as well, not having a full smile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what was that like growing up? You said, were you born and raised in the Florida area?
Yes, I was born and raised in the Florida area.
So was it tough growing up? I mean, we've had, with FSHD, was it, kids can be cruel, let's just face it. And, growing up sometimes if you're deemed a little different, it's not always the best path. So did you have any of those hurdles you had to overcome when you were younger?
Yeah, I think I had a few, but I'm really grateful that I grew up with siblings who were supportive of me, even though, we had our sibling fights. They were still really caring, and I had a wonderful best friend who I'm still friends with now. I grew up homeschooled, so I didn't really experience a lot of bullying from kids at school or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's avoiding that. That's good, right? I coach a lot of kids that are homeschooled too. They seem to like that path. It's different, of course, but it's interesting. I kind of wish I would think I was homeschooled sometimes because I think I might have had a better experience, a bit more focused. So were you always inclined to be a musician or feel like that was your calling? Like how early did that start for you?
Yeah, I think internally, I always knew that I was destined to be a creative person. I just wasn't sure that it was music until I was a little bit older. I was a very quiet kid. I guess that comes from being homeschooled, maybe. But I was afraid to sing in front of people for a long time. And then I started playing guitar when I was 13 and started public school when I was 14 and joined choir and kind of figured everything out then.
Now, when you were in choir, I mean, that's just singing. Did you use any of the skills that you were developing playing guitar in the school setting too, like band or anything like that?
No, I played guitar mostly just by myself in my bedroom. It was kind of like always separate from what I was doing in school, but I could take what I was learning in school and then apply it to guitar.
Yeah. So it sounds like are you self-taught in guitar a little bit? Or mostly?
Yeah, mostly. I took a virtual class which got me started, and then I have an older brother who taught me how to play fingerstyle when I was 14. But everything else has just been driven by my curiosity and looking things up on the internet, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of, I think, the creative side. Obviously, you were okay with doing things a little maybe difficult? I'm sure there was moments of failure. Like, how was that process? Did it kind of come easier for you, guitar, singing, or was it something that it felt like it was just like a skill you were felt driven to do, but so you just pushed through any types of, things that made it tough?
Yeah, I think it was difficult at first, but I was so hungry for it that I guess I ended up just pushing through. And I think one of the most beautiful things that I realized early on is that like a limitation is a driving force of
Mm,
creativity.
wow.
And so just having that kind of helped me get through.
You know, I'm writing that down, by the way. Of every time I'm on these great interviews with these amazing people, you included. I'm always like searching for that nugget. Like you just gave
Mm-hmm.
a fantastic one. Um, that line, limitation is a driving force of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Did you
Yeah.
just make that up now, or have you used that before? Because that is fantastic.
I I talk about that a lot
Really.
actually. I think it's actually a lot of creatives believe in that line
Mhm.
as well because if you can do everything, you're not laboring for the
Mhm.
art, but
Mhm.
if you have a set of confines, it's like, well, what can I do within this limitation? And
Mhm.
you have to like invent and be innovative in that way, and it really challenges your creative faculties, I think.
That is very insightful because I never, yeah, I've never even thought of it from that perspective. People think a limitation um, is just that, right? It's like it's difficult, you can't overcome. I use like the terms, is it an excuse or is it a reason? An
Mm-hmm.
excuse means that's it, I'm done, I'm out. And a reason is just like, okay, that's why I can't do it, but I'm going to try to figure it out anyway. Or
Mm-hmm.
this is, and I kind of describe that to my kids all the time, and they look at me like with the puppy dog tilt, like, what do you mean? Even though I've said it 100 times, but that's just fascinating. Yeah, and t- to me, people are interesting. Some can overcome things easier than others. Some adapt easier than others. I've always found that FSHD people in the community, myself included, I think we're like master adapters. I think that if there's
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if we're really even trying to do it. Like we were just
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the goal, and this is where I am. Well, how do I get there? And some of the things I do are going to be a little different than others, but so what? There's more than one way to the waterfalls. I've been told, right? There's like different paths to get there. It sounds like
Yeah.
your musical path was, relatively, maybe some might say common as like others, school choir. I've heard that, or in the church singing, with the choir. A lot of musicians and artists have even come through there. Um, but you picked up guitar, you sing. Was there another instrument that you also play or wish you could play?
I did play flute for a very short time. That was actually the first instrument that I wanted to
Mm.
play, but I had a lot of difficulty, and my parents and I decided when I was in middle school that maybe it wasn't the route for me to take. But my last semester of high school, I had a really cool music theory teacher who was also the band teacher, and
Mm.
he convinced me just to try band
Yeah.
for one semester since I had room in my schedule, and he worked with me on playing flute. I
Mm.
only played it for that semester because shortly after lost the ability to really make it work, and it
Mhm.
was an adaptive experience anyway. But I am really grateful that I had that experience, even though it was
Mhm.
short.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could totally play like rock music with a flute. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's some bands, back in the day, they would rock
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I know that, everybody knows FSHD can affect that part of our face, and that must have been difficult, right? To try to adapt or try to do that. That's quite a choice to pick as an instrument right off the
Yeah.
bat. Wow. And then when did you start to think then guitar was kind of your thing, or try it?
Um, so I started playing guitar like I said, when I was 13, and but I didn't really consider myself a guitarist until recently. Like I've
Mm.
always considered myself someone who plays guitar,
Mm.
but for a while, I think I invalidated myself as a guitarist because I can't play leads very well. And I have a different style of playing. But
Mm,
over the past 2, 3 years, I've really started to embrace it more. And I've met other guitarists who tell me I have an idiosyncratic way of playing and that I
mm,
should not discount that.
mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an instrument I always wanted to try to learn. I had my tries at it and I get frustrated when things don't go my way so well. So I kind of gave it up and then, I'd sell the guitar. And then now I always think, man, like I was telling the last guest, I was like, it's kind of like I can visualize myself on the beach, right, with the fire pit and you're playing the guitar, right? And
Mhm.
everybody's with you. I know it's such a corny way to think about it, but I've always been fascinated by those that could play it and play it well. Is there any influences then you have if it's maybe a guitarist or just another artist in general that have kind of influenced your music?
Yeah, one of my greatest influences is Joni Mitchell.
Oh, it's-
Um, and I think she inspires me in every way, both guitar playing and singing and lyric writing, or just composition.
mhm,
Um, but especially with her guitar playing. I talk about this at a lot of live shows that I play. I just give this anecdote of Joni Mitchell in an interview explaining how she had polio as a child and that left her with some weakness, and
oh,
especially in her left hand. She says, I don't have a very facile left hand, and so to get the colorful harmonies that she wants, she
mhm,
uses alternate tunings and, comes up with these shapes that make it easy for her hands to navigate the fretboard. And so I take a lot of inspiration from that, and I use alternate tunings to
mm.
kind of help me um,
Yeah.
navigate that weakness as well.
Wow. Yeah, you found something in common, right, with
Hmm.
Joni Mitchell then. I did
Hmm.
not even know that about her.
Hmm.
That's fascinating. That she was definitely a powerful artist, right? In like her time, things that she did, um,
Hmm.
totally just breaking barriers. So it's interesting then that you kind of follow her music or are influenced by it. Then is your sound similar? Do you think?
I think in some ways, it is similar. I do have a lot of people who come up to me after open mics or shows and ask me if I'm influenced by her
Mm,
because they hear like those fragments of Joni, whether it's like the melodic writing or
mm,
the interesting harmonies or colorful harmonies. Um,
yeah.
but I like to think that I take inspiration from everyone, everywhere, all the time, and I'm not like trying to limit myself to a particular sound. I'm just trying to like be curious and let the music come to me and like exist and breathe through me as well.
Mm. Where do you get inspired then when you write your music? Is it just something that happens within your day, within your life? Like, does the lyric pop in the middle of the night in a dream? I mean, do you have a
Mm,
notepad by you all the time? Like, how does that work? I've always been fascinated by that process.
yeah, so I like to think of moments as opportunities to
Mm,
harvest inspiration. And so it's almost meditative in a way, but I feel like I've cultivated this practice of just going about life and being willing to be inspired by anything that happens to me. And I feel like just remaining open all the time and constantly collecting inspiration from life experience is like it makes my entire life a creative practice. And then because I'm open, I do have those moments where I feel like a song is just given to me. Like I
mm,
just all of the sudden feel inspired to write lyrics.
mm,
And I used to think that people just, had a gift or a talent, but I think it's partially it's about remaining open, and that itself is a labor of like being willing to collect inspiration
mhm.
at any
Yeah,
point in time. Yeah.
yeah. The term you use are open, right? Like absorb everything probably around you.
Hmm.
You're probably not taking much for granted then, right? I mean, all these little acts in people's lives. I think we just kind of are in our bubbles sometimes and just kind of move through the world. But you kind of open. I think you
Mm-hmm.
got to be inspired, even if you're not a lyricist or someone that writes
Mm-hmm.
music. But which kind of leads me then to the next part of that, right? And I've asked this before of some artists, and I say, so then does the lyric come first, or is it the melody, or is it just
Mm.
depend?
Most of the time for me, it is the lyric first.
Mm,
Um, I'll occasionally have melodies or uh, I'll sit with my guitar and just improvise something and come up with a chord progression first. But most of the time, it is lyrics first. And I think part of the reason for me is that for so long growing up, I was like afraid of singing out loud or just really shy. But I had this like internal world where I was like writing these poems in my head. And I think I'm still that way. I just write poems and lyrics. Sometimes the lyric and the melody, they travel together, so they come to me at the same time.
mm.
But yeah,
You ever
mostly
been
mostly lyrics first.
you ever been in like a almost like the state of panic or slight anxiety, like this thought is coming to you in the most inopportune moment, or like, how do I like? Are you ever worried you're going to forget it? Like, are you ever worried like you're going to lose it if you don't capture
Yeah,
it?
I am sometimes, but um, yeah, I think songs come or lyrics, they come to people at
Mm,
very interesting times. And then I just have to like repeat it in the back of my mind while I'm doing the thing that
mm.
I'm doing and like try to finish up and like, okay, just need to repeat this to myself over and over until I get a moment to write it down or type it in my notes app.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sure it helps that like this day and age, having a cell phone, you can probably jot it down somehow, right? At least some trail of breadcrumbs back to your thought and why you thought it. Like, why did it influence you at that moment? You talked about
Hmm.
poetry too. Is there a huge then, parallel? Do they walk kind of hand in hand? Poetry, lyrics, music writing?
I think so. I'm of the mind that lyrics are poems
Mm,
anyway. Like, um, and I became a better lyric writer when I started reading more
mm,
poetry and when I experimented with writing standalone
mm,
poetry. Um, and a lot of times I think the poetic structure or the form of the lyrics kind of dictates the form of the song for me as well.
mm. That's cool. That's cool. Oh man. This is good stuff. I know I'm a total like musician nerd. I just like hearing how artists like create things, and because when I listen to the music I listen to, and my wife calls all my music weird, which is fine. I could totally live with that. But I am always keyed in like on the lyrics. What are they trying to say? Like I'm almost trying to like decipher it, and then
Mhm,
when I feel like I got it, I'm like, hey, and then can I relate what I believe that they're trying to get across into my own life? And then it kind of takes that deeper
mhm,
form. The music then kind of hits me a little bit better. And then before you know it, I'm like listening to it a lot. Is that kind
mhm,
of even maybe goal is the wrong word, but is that kind of the outcome you hope for when other people listen to your music?
mhm. Yeah, I think I don't remember whose thought this is originally, but there's sort of like this triangle
Mm,
of an artwork,
mm,
and it's this conversation between the artist, the piece itself, and then the person who is observing the art.
yeah.
And at that point in time when someone observes the art, that's kind of when it theoretically like comes into being. When someone is perceiving it, that's when it comes into being. And so
Mm,
I do hope that people of any background can listen to my work and find something of themselves in it.
mm,
I also feel like the role of the artist is to kind of reflect human existence in a way that allows humanity to understand more of itself.
mm,
And so I do want someone to listen to my work and uncover something about either themselves or
mm.
to understand some sort of complex truth about life. And I think that's really up to the listener to decide.
How it means to them, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. You have a brand new album out. Um,
Hmm.
those that need to know, you need to know, people. You need to know. You need to go find it. It's called I Can't Be Anything But Human, right?
Hmm.
Interesting title. Grabbed my attention immediately. And we were just talking about, you used the word human in the last question or last answer that you gave us, is kind of where did you come up with that title? And is it a title of a track for those that don't know about the album?
Yeah, so the title of the album is actually a lyric from the
Mm,
last song on the album, which is called May After November.
mm,
And I feel like it sort of captures the philosophy of the album. There's a lyric, if I'm the sum of my experiences, if that's what makes a life, then part of me will always be loving you. Um, and that's kind of like the philosophy of the album, that like we can't divorce ourselves from the experiences that we've had, because those are exactly the things that make us human. Like you maybe heard the theory that like we're the sum of our parts, or like we're just acquiring experiences and that's what makes us who we are.
mm,
And so I was kind of like toying with that idea while working on the album. It's about relationships with different people, with time, and the way that we leave past versions of ourselves behind, or we stay attached to them. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea of the album and where the title comes from.
nice, nice. When I listened to it, it felt a little folkish, and it's interesting because I didn't know about the Joni Mitchell influence. So now that I know, it did have elements of that for sure. But that's kind of my description. Like how would you describe your style of music if someone asked, well, okay, Gracie, you're an artist. Like, what kind of music do you play? I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah, that's always the hardest question to answer.
Yeah.
Usually I will say something to the effect of alternative folk or indie
Mm,
folk. These days, a lot of times I just say eclectic
mm,
singer-songwriter. Um,
mm-hmm.
because like I was saying earlier, like I don't really want to be bound by one
Yeah.
style. I like exploring different genres, and finding ways to fuse them together.
Have you gotten any feedback from the album yet? I think it's a pretty early release, right? But
Yeah, I released it in May of this year, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback, from people in the music community here in Kansas City. Um, nothing major, but
but positive, right? I mean, that you
yes,
want to hear that, right? That like it's touching people, and that okay, I'm on the right track
yeah,
here. I love the
yeah.
fact too that you don't want to be confined to a certain style. I know I was like, even when people ask me, well, what kind of music do you like to listen to? I really don't know what to tell them because I can't always
Really?
describe it. It can be a little bit all over the map. All I know is it's not country. I don't like country at all,
Um,
like at all. So
I used to say the same thing, but
yeah,
I think you have to give country a chance. There's some
what?
good country out there.
Come on, Gracie, don't tell me I got to do that. You think so? You think I should give it a shot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just have to listen to the right country
Hmm.
artists. I think country artists can be great storytellers.
That I'll give you. Yeah. They are great
Yeah.
storytellers. I'll definitely say that. And I don't know if I'd rather listen to it than in an audiobook or if I want to listen to it with the music tones that I don't care for as much. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Mm.
But that's out there. I think that it's not a secret anymore. I think I've said that multiple times and throughout these episodes that I've had on this fun platform. But so the album's released. Sounds like you're getting good feedback, and usually then that leads to live shows and this and that. So have you performed live? It sounded like earlier you talked about that. You've had some live, um, shows, concerts, however you want to put it. So tell us about that a little
Yeah.
bit. That experience, either the first time when you went out in front of someone, and then kind of what is it like now?
Mm. Yeah. So I've been attending a lot of open mics for a
Mm-hmm.
while, but um, I played a very intimate show at a bookstore
Nice.
this summer when I went to visit Orlando. And that was fun. But my first like real show, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Oh, and I did play a house show back in May as well.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
but my first like real concert experience was in August, and I had been frequenting an open mic called The Rhino here in Kansas City, and got asked to play on a show there. It's a music venue,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the most difficult parts, I think, about navigating live shows is access. So I do use a power wheelchair, and a lot of independent venues, by no fault of their own, just don't have great stage access. There's
Yeah.
not usually a ramp. And so I was really grateful that this music venue saw a lot of value in me and my work. And
Mm-hmm.
we have a temporary access solution so that I can play shows there now.
Oh, nice.
So I played one in August, I played one in November, and I have one coming up in December as well there.
Exciting. Wow.
Yeah. It's been a really great experience. I usually play with a friend of mine who plays viola, so we
Mhm.
don't always get the full band experience. But I've been experimenting with a string trio as well, so adding a violin and a cellist to that mix. Um, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's really powerful, I think, to have a platform to share feelings that are so vulnerable,
Yeah.
and to share, words that I believe in and music that I've labored for.
Yeah. I mean, you're really throwing yourself out there. When you go
Yeah.
live, there's no, there's no like, hang on, let me like redo that. Or, you can see the faces of the people now that are listening to your music. When you release an album, I can imagine you're like, okay, it's out there. I mean, I can remember only from I'm not a musician, right? We all know this. But with the, with the podcast world, way back, like 15 years ago, when I released my first episode of whatever podcast that I called it, then it was like, you hit the button and it goes, and you're like, okay, there it goes, like it's out there. But I had the, I wasn't that vulnerable, right? I mean, no one saw what I looked like, they didn't even know my name. I mean, I was, just, and it was kind of a chicken way, right? In
Mm,
comparison to musicians such as yourselves, it's like you are sitting right there, like you get to experience it all, good, bad, or otherwise, right? And that is a really vulnerable position to be in. And
yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of us in the community are maybe thinking too. Like I always think, like, what would they be? Like, what would I be asking if I'm listening to this for the first time, as in the listeners out there? And you mentioned power wheelchair, and we're talking about vulnerability. So I guess the picture I'm seeing is that you're on stage, right, in the power wheelchair then, and you're playing the music. Like, what do you think? Like, what is that? What is that reaction like? Do you get any? I mean, because it's different.
Mm,
I mean, let's just, that's just how it is. Like, it's just a little different. Like, people are not used to
mm,
seeing that, and I'm glad you're showing it to them.
yeah. I I feel like a lot of the responses that I get, speaking to
Mm-hmm.
people afterward. Most of the time they are music centric, but people, they do tell me that they feel changed by seeing
Mm-hmm.
me. And I feel like, being visible, in a way, as a disabled person, being visible in spaces that are not very accessible is kind of radical,
Yeah.
because you're forcing people to, sit with a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, disabled people do exist, and so do disabled musicians. So why haven't we made space for them yet? Clearly, disabled people have very meaningful and important things to express through their art. Shouldn't they also have a platform? And I've had a lot of conversations with people and, friends that I've made in the scene telling me that now everywhere that they go, they think about access. They think about accessibility now. They say, "Oh, Gracie wouldn't be able to come here. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to fit in this bookstore, or, Gracie wouldn't be able to get on that stage, or this other cultural venue is not accessible either." And so I think that has been really meaningful for me to be able to sort of challenge people's perception of disability, and the value of disabled artists.
Mm, that's well put, right? You kind of open the eyes for others to see. Disabled people are musicians, as you said, and right, the accessibility of the able-bodied person to recognize this is not going to work. I mean, my disease progression is not to that extent. However, because of the disease, my radar is way up on like how can people get into places and not. And I find myself getting a little, well, maybe a lot frustrated. And I'm like, how is this possible? I'm like, these people that are in chairs are going to miss out on these certain experiences because you didn't think about making it accessible. Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So it's great. It seems like you're turning at least in your corner of the world, and then maybe then it expands. So those people that have witnessed that are aware of it, and then it has some type of ripple effect in a positive way because it does have to change. There has to be more accessibility for everyone. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you showing that you have a skill, have a talent that you want to share with the world. If you can't get onto the stage, sometimes that's going to be tough, right? And that's just not fair. That's just
Yeah.
crazy. So
I
yeah, that's
I
interesting.
am yeah, I am grateful that there are spaces that have worked to try to accommodate
Hmm.
me. I know it is difficult in like the independent space as well because the thing that sucks is access is expensive
Yeah.
and it is hard to like, try to work with small businesses who maybe don't
Hmm.
have the budget for some sort of remodeling to help with access. And so
Right.
I try to like hold space for that and be gracious as well. And I'm just glad that I'm able to start a conversation in the community about access issues.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a direction I didn't even think we were going to go, to be honest with you, when we started this conversation, but I'm definitely glad we did.
Yeah.
So, we're theming about the theme about Thanksgiving. We've definitely used the word grateful throughout this. As you celebrate, recognize Thanksgiving, I guess, the cheesy question, Gracie, what are you thankful for?
Mm. I think that everything I mentioned,
Mm,
I'm thankful that I have the experience to create, and I'm thankful that I have support from friends and family um, who seek to understand my work and understand me through that. And I'm thankful for the experience of love in all of these relationships.
we all should be. That is a great example of thankfulness. Lastly, okay, no pressure, but I know you just had this album released in May of
Mm.
last year. Like, do you have more music coming? Because I know you're going to gain more fans. I hope just from this little bit of exposure we can give and more clicks and finding the music. It's like I'm always like, if I like an artist, I'm like, okay, I just absolutely crushed this album, listened to it like a million times, and I'm like, when's the next one? So,
Mm.
is that in the works? And like, I'm imagining that is a tough process sometimes.
Yeah, it is tough. I do have a couple singles that I want to record before the next album that are kind of like B-sides or like
Mm,
I want to get some closure for this
mm,
first album project before I
nice.
dive into the next one. But the songs are written. Um, it's just a matter of, getting the funding to make a good recording. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do have plans to apply for grants and make that
Nice.
happen. So hopefully
Awesome.
by the spring of next year we'll see some new music.
Okay. Late breaking by the spring. Write it down. Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks, Gracie, for joining us, spending some time today on Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for your musical talent that I've now discovered and am enjoying thanks to this FSHD community. So, thank you much for being here and joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I don't pick flowers long has it been since then? The memories have grown overripe and fermented. Why I wrote this song about you in an altered state of mind. There's no way in hell or heaven I will ever call you mine again. No, I think I've come to terms with it. The months can't be ours, and I can't be anything but human. Why, if I'm the sum of my experiences, if that's what makes a life, then part of me will always be loving you.
Welcome to the Thanksgiving special of FSHD Straight Talk with our awesome guest. He's been on here before, Ben Livingston. He is one of the artists that we are spotlighting. And before we hit record, I told Ben I love talking to musicians, people that have that talent, because I do not. So I always admire that talent. I've always dreamed to learn how to play guitar and be that guy on the beach, with the fire pit and all that. Ben, you can see the scene, right? So I admire what all of you can do so well. And of course, FSHD is just another hurdle you have to probably fight through in order to continue sometimes with those great skills and talents that you have. But first off, Ben, where are you from? Are you in the Texas area? Am I recalling that correct?
I'm in Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Austin, yeah. And you do a lot of swimming too. Yeah. I bet. Now, question just popped up. Okay, you said a lot of music around here. What kind of music is in Austin? Is it strictly country, or what do you think is the main genres in your area?
Well, there's something called Americana that may have kind of originated here in part, but there's everything from, we have a great symphony here, and there's a lot of great jazz here, and there's world beat music here. Wow. And there is a lot of country here, but it's an innovative country. We had a movement here back in the 70s, and it was called the Cosmic Cowboy Movement. And it happened here because a lot of hippies lived here that were from Texas, and Willie Nelson moved here, and people like Leon Russell and all these people would play at this really cool joint called the excuse me, I'm going to throw my phone over here. It's making sense. There was a place called the Armadillo World Headquarters, and they would bring in acts from all over the country, maybe all over the world. And this was back in the 70s, and it really put Texas on the map. It's why you've heard of Willie Nelson and Jerry Jeff Walker and a lot of other musicians that they had come from Nashville, and they were so kind of out there for Nashville that they found their home here. Were very well received, as you know.
Yeah, of course.
So, and the rest is kind of history. And so, no, it's not country specifically at all. A lot of really great rock here. 13th Floor Elevator came from here. Anyway, I could go on.
It sounds like there's a lot good knowledge of it.
There's a lot to draw from, and a lot of great things, acts to see all the time, all playing all over the place.
Now, I did a little investigative work on you, Ben. Okay, I'm guilty. I searched for you on like you do have album on, or some other music as well as top of the as well as the album you have out on Spotify. I found that. I found you. So you have a unique sound. I like it. It is. I love lyrics. It feels like there's a lot of meaning and probably a lot of concentration on what you're talking about or what you want to write about. So I guess what style of music would you call your music? And the other question is, where do you get the inspiration to write your music?
I don't think the style of my music's ever been pinned down. I have a friend who somebody asked him if he played country music, and he said, "Well, what country are you talking about?" So there's been reviews written that just says my stuff's all over the map, and that's right where I want it. I mean, who wants to get stuck in something? It's not my thing, and I'm pretty mercurial as a person anyway, so I'm generally all over the map in a lot of different ways all the time. So a lot of inspiration in the sort of earlier songs and work came from this, the trials and tribulations of being diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. I was scared to death, and music was a great distraction for me. It was a way to work out and have this sort of cathartic way of dealing with it, but it was also a great distraction that kept my mind off of doomsday, which would generally just kind of catapult me into some kind of depression that I just didn't want to be a part of. So it was a levity for me, and it was also a way to sort of enrich this experience that it was inevitable. I didn't have a choice, and it's kind of weird to not have a choice, especially with your physicality when you've been such a physical person. I mean, I grew up a surfer, and I was pretty good at it, and these abilities aren't there anymore, but it's that vulnerability, I think, that that makes you really become more introspective than you would have been when everything's just kind of going along.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? And how it probably affected you. Did you write music prior to your diagnosis, and then how did that work?
I was more into, yes, I did, and they were kind of happy, silly songs. And kind of like, things like Golfers Are Fat, and
I heard that one.
Smart Fools from Art Schools, and I was just having a good time, and then all of a sudden, kind of got broadsided, and everything changed, and my music became much more introspective and probably a lot more interpretable, because I didn't want to be obvious about it, because frankly, I was afraid I didn't want to talk about it, and to live a life where, as an artist or a musician, or talking about a malady is just plain bad for business, frankly. And I was just trying to survive as an artist. And a gallery owner a long time ago told me, she said, all a patron really wants from an artist is a pint of their blood. Well, I didn't want to sell tainted blood, so I never really talked about FSHD. I mean, frankly, it was late before I got diagnosed. We didn't know what it was for a long time. And so I just want to say I've never really talked about this before, and I've never really gotten to talk about this before. I mean, for me, it's like I'm one of the super lucky ones. So I'm late onset, and it's a pretty slow progression, and I manage it well because I swim a lot. But I'm either talking, I either want to talk, if I want to talk, I'm either talking to people that don't understand because they can't wrap their brain around the situation because it's not in their life, or there's people that are worse off than me that I just don't feel entitled to share about. So I'm sort of locked in this little room. So songs are a great way to work it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes you feel better, I'm sure. Like you said, it keeps that depression away, so you're not kind of going those dark rabbit holes, and a good distraction. I think most of us have those things. Are you ever worried that the way you play, how you play, the FSHD is going to affect that, and it might take it away from you?
Yeah, particularly lately. It's been 6 years pretty much since I kind of hung it up after playing a lot for about 5 years. And then I kind of just hung it up, and I'd sort of play in the living room by myself. And now I'm back in a band. I've got a couple other fun things going on. It feels good to not feel like I need to prove myself anymore. But I notice when there's some songs that are pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, boy, this shoulder just starts going. It's real wonky anyway. And I've learned how to just kind of go with it and sort of use that momentum as part of the stroke of my strumming. But now when songs hit a certain tempo, it's all I can do to make that muscle fire on time. I mean, it's like, it's all I can do. I'm so exhausted by the end of the song
Wow.
because this thing has to, you have to be in time.
Yeah,
Or,
right.
I mean, that's just a crucial point of it. So I've noticed lately, it's like, wow, I wonder how much longer, because these songs were no problem 5 years ago.
Okay. So there's been adjustments, right? I mean, things that happen, aggressive songs, so a little maybe slower timing, as you mentioned, might be easier, but you're with the band and that, or that group, and that group. Am I going to pronounce this right? Shiggity, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way to go.
All right. Yes. Yes. So tell us about that. Tell us about that new group. That sounds exciting.
Well, I found a neighbor who's a really great guitar player,
Mhm.
and another friend who's a good bass player. And we found this drummer who's really funny, and he's this really great he's kind of locally famous drummer who's old. He's kind of and he's really hilarious. And he'll say, like, so you want me to do he'll do these, like, this kind of drum beat, trying to kind of figure out what's going to go with whatever we're doing in the composition.
Yeah.
So you want shiggity or you want a dingleberry? So
Hence
it's
the
such
name?
a great word that
Yeah.
we just adapted it for Dexter.
That's beautiful. That's
We love
beautiful.
Dexter.
That's awesome. So have you guys then, is this a recent group that's gotten together?
We got together about a year ago.
Okay.
My wife and I go to Europe in the summer, so we got back and we started playing all through the winter.
Mhm.
And we kind of put all these songs together. And in May, we had a little concert. And then the bass player had to go back to England. So it's very sporadic, but we're back together, and we're kind of polishing up this set again, and we'll start play out a little bit.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that.
It feels
That
so
sounds
good.
fun. And it sounds like then does Shiggity play kind of similar to your solo stuff, or is it a little bit off that path?
It's all my solo.
It is your songs. That's
I'm
awesome.
not
So it's enhanced.
I'm not really. Well, I had a band before, and you'll see it in the YouTube that you're going to show,
Mhm.
But
Okay.
I had a band before, but they kind of got it. Just, bands do things and go different ways. So this is a new one. We worked so hard in the last band. I think everybody got sick of doing it, because it's like booking gig after
Burnout.
gig after gig.
Yeah.
Anyway, the new one's just dying to play out, and it's nice to have I love to play solo. I just love it because I can really concentrate, and I can really feel and act out the lyrics, in a visceral way,
Yeah.
a very meaningful, expressive way. With a band, you're working as a cohesive sort of organism. So, like that one song that really preys on my shoulder. I mean, it's just got to be that way until it doesn't happen anymore. And I don't think slowing it down is going to be appealing for anybody.
Right.
So I just have to muster. But we're having a great time, and feels good to not to be ambitious, and we're just having fun.
Yeah, just let it flow, right? There's no
Mhm.
pressure. Just have fun with it. That's awesome.
I don't think I'm not capable of playing anybody else's music. I'm just not built like that. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Be original. You seem to be that kind of guy, Ben. An original.
Don't really have a choice.
Now, I know last time we had you on the show, we also talked about like your neon artwork, which has, always been a big talent of yours, and we were very excited that you shared that with us then. Are you still doing that too as well?
A little bit. It's also kind of trailing off. Like I don't know if I mentioned, my wife retired about a year and a half ago, and so I kind of like to do whatever she's doing, and I'm pardon me if I mentioned this before. I'd spend about a half a day swimming at Barton Springs just to maintain my musculature the best I can. So that takes about a half a day by the time I've swam and taken a nap and all that stuff. So whatever's left that she doesn't get, I like to dedicate to music or art. I've been out in the studio working a little bit. It feels good. I can't not use my hands. They're just these extensions of my personality that have to be, it's the animal I'm built on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you do it very well. The instrument of choice is a guitar that you play, or do you play others? Your instrument of choice when you're playing music, is it the guitar, or is there other instruments that you use?
I play a really strange little guitar. It's called a tenor guitar. Here.
Tenor.
And this is what it looks like. It's got 4 strings instead of 6. And it's this beautiful old Martin tenor from the 60s. And it's it has an interesting history. It was originally it was originally played by banjo players who didn't want to hire a guitar player, so they put a banjo neck on this guitar and created this thing. So it's tuned like a mandolin or maybe a viola in what's
Okay.
called fifths. So it's very musical little thing. So I
Nice.
much prefer that.
I've never heard of that before. That's awesome. You just educated me. I learned something new today. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a nice looking guitar. Yeah, absolutely.
It
Now-
won't do a thing that you ask it to do if you play guitar.
No.
Totally uncooperative. That way.
No, but I couldn't help but notice. So the guitar behind you, is that an electric guitar back there?
That's an electric tenor.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. You ever?
Oh man, that's a screamer. It's really
that-
great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So which one do you like to play more?
Well, they all, they're different paintbrushes. You use them for, they're different tools for different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on the mood or, whatever you want to, however you want something to feel, they definitely have two different personalities. Very,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. And now we are going to play, like a YouTube of one of your songs. Tell us a little bit about that song.
This song, I was really thinking about which song I would play, and I'm sorry it's not working out technically today for that.
No, it's okay.
But this
Get
is
it
a
out there.
stage performance at the Continental Club, which is about as good as it gets. So
Nice.
I'm happy to share that. It's a song that I wrote. I was actually playing these gigs at night, and I would swim at night before them, just kind of get myself kind of cleared out and ready for the show. And it's a song called When I Wave My Arms, because I swim in this giant freshwater pool called Barton Springs. And the lights would be shining down, they have lights at night. So they're shining down through this clear, open water. It's wild swimming, some people call it. And I would see the bottom, and I'd see the fish, and I'd see the algae and the grasses all growing. And I always felt like I was flying, like I was some sort of migratory bird, and I was flying over mountains and streams, and I'd see all this stuff. And I realized that this is the one time that my shoulders are completely free, and to the extent that I'm literally flying, like it's as close as humans get to fly without, falling to their death. And that's swimming. And I wear a mask and a snorkel because it really keeps my neck straight and comfortable when I swim.
Nice.
And so I wrote this song about, it's really based on, it's very interpretable, but it's truly based on this FSHD and sort of how it feels to get that rare opportunity to just glide along physically. Like I mean, you're there, Tim. I mean,
water helps, that's for sure.
How blessed is it to feel your physicality, like, and with no gravity, you get to be there.
Yeah. Yep. And water offers that. It is very therapeutic in many ways, but even for your mental health, I'm sure you would agree that it just helps.
Get to see this, what I get to see is just, if anybody can swim, and primarily if you can swim in any kind of wild water, and look with the mask and just see this world underneath you, it's incredibly therapeutic.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've heard you talk about it before. I've seen you on social media post some awesome videos of you swimming in Barton Springs.
Oh yeah.
It looks peaceful. Yeah, it looks really nice. And there are I really implore people to find these videos too of the swimming, because you have presented it in some of those I've seen where it's almost like we're swimming right with you, and it is very cool. So I like that. Yeah, it's great. It's like I'm right there, So I love that.
You should have seen the rig.
Oh, really?
I had this zoom on my mask. I look like some kind of cyborg swimming.
Yeah, from what we see, it looks so peaceful. Everybody else is scared and running. Like, what is this guy doing?
I've got duct tape stuck in my hair, and you have no idea.
Anything for art, right? Anything for the art of film.
Anything for the so that song,
that's cool.
When I Wave My Arms, is about all of that.
All about that experience. That's great. Yeah, that's I think what people have to realize, when you listen to Ben's music, it does come from the heart. You can hear it, and I think that is authentic. And I know that word sometimes is overused in this day and age, but this is the real way to describe authentic. I think that's how I would describe your music, Ben. It's authentic. It's real. It comes right from him. I think if people know you, then they know your music, right? They're not surprised what it sounds like and how it feels. So I enjoyed it. I I can honestly say I don't love all types of music. Country is definitely not on my list at all. So I was kind of grateful or happy, I should say, that it wasn't really country like. So I was good with that. So, but in the spirit of this episode or episodes that we're doing, throughout this little Thanksgiving holiday, some celebrate it big, some celebrate it small, maybe some don't at all. I don't know. But for you, what is this time of year, Thanksgiving? How would you wrap it up, or how do you celebrate it? How do you acknowledge it?
Well, there's been a flurry of family come in from both coasts.
Yeah.
And food and general love and slight annoyance and all the great things that come with family.
That's
has
great.
been a truly something to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a stretch to say this, but I've always wanted to write a song about how grateful I've been to have been given this like journey I never would have embarked on had I not contracted FSHD.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just got to get hit in the face with a frying pan to wake up, and I thank FSHD for that. I mean, I'm not grateful for the symptoms, but
no, I totally get it. And I agree with you. I was kind of a jackass, I think, more of one before my diagnosis. I think I was a little more, I don't know, maybe jackass is hard on myself, but I was definitely a little more judgmental, and just like, like, why can't people, be like this or like that? And, I just needed I always say, like, sometimes people just need a good tragedy. And it sounds cold, but you need, like you said, a frying pan in the face to kind of wake you up and to go, what is life really about? What are you taking for granted? What are you being so critical over? It's too short, and I am grateful for having the disease, if anything, for that reason. It's definitely a wake up call, a massive shift. But you're right, the symptoms suck. But if you can try to turn into a positive, I think that's the direction to go.
Well, I guess we all do our best. If y'all are like me, if you're like me, I mean, I wish I had all of the time back that I spent worrying about the doom in my future. I'd give anything for that time back.
Yeah.
Somehow at age 66, something in me has reckoned with that. And but I am, for instance, I was asked to do the FSHD conference in Denver back in the summer, and I was just too scared to do it. I just couldn't face it. There's sometimes I just get so just mortally afraid of getting too close to it. It's just like it's a fire that I just can feel the flames burning me if I get too close. So I practice something sometimes. A lot of the time, you can ask June about this. I call it, constructive denial, and it works for me when I need it. It's a great tool.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes, like, I don't need, like, and I spend a lot of time. Everybody I know does not have it. I wish you lived next door, because I'd love to be close to somebody.
Right, a little bit relatable.
Although I do have a really great friend that I met at Barton Springs, and when I watched him get out of the pool, I knew he had it. I could see the way he like pulled himself up and his shoulders just like did that thing, and and I approached him and I said, "Hey, I know this sounds really weird, but I'm going to ask you this very personal question." And sure enough, he had FSHD, and we have become like brothers. I mean, to find somebody, and he's younger than me, and he sort of counts on me to stay in good shape, which is it's kind of a load, but I feel almost an obligation to him to stay on top of this, because I really love this man, and I want to make sure that he has an example to follow. Like, what I was going to say is, there's so many people that in my life, like 99.9% people that don't have this, can't relate. And what's great about them is I see, the snapshot my brain takes of a healthy person to relate to are them. So when I'm swimming with all these like Adonises, I think I'm one of them. And I think psychically it's super healthy. So
it is. Yeah. Same. It's similar when you said that, like when I go to the gym, I just assume I'm like these other people, right?
Yeah.
Like fit in. Or when I've seen my physical therapist, he doesn't treat me like someone with FSHD. He kind of treats me like the athlete that he thinks I should be in my moment of my life right now. And he doesn't address it, doesn't talk about it. You know, he experiments with exercise, but he makes me feel like this is just the way I am. That's okay. Let's still do this stuff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that type of approach, at least for me. So I totally get it. Yeah.
That's great. And I the Steve Kowalik, you know, the the massage therapist that I brought on originally.
Yeah.
It's like that with him. We're so lucky to have these people that can take us, you know, at our, what do you call it? A baseline.
Yeah.
And can work with that without, you know, there's no judgment. We're just this is what you are, as though there's nobody else in the world to compare it to. And we're going to just make that better.
Yeah.
Any way we can.
Yeah.
And
yep, that's all we need.
You could be on your deathbed, and it's possible you could work with that there. I don't know.
Right.
He seems to be able to with people who are in terrible condition.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not this is like my prayer, is that I never sound presumptuous, and that I always sound grateful and compassionate about people who aren't as lucky as I am.
Yeah.
It's so important to me, and that's why I back away from a lot of these events that I'm asked to speak at, because it's like, I'm just this lucky guy. I can't really relate to somebody that's not in as good a shape as me, and I've had to reckon with that, and that's that's a lucky burden to have.
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so great you do this program. It must be very therapeutic for you.
It is very therapeutic. I mean, it's just another one of those gifts that I try to find within FSHD, is that I never would have met the people I've met in this platform, talk to them, have great conversations, learn so much, about what they do, how do they cope, other things they do in their life. It just broadened that, view of the world that I'm so grateful for, that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I would have stayed in my little town, my little shell, and that would have been it. And this has definitely opened the world, speaking to people all the way from Texas to Australia. I mean, come on, right? It's just been phenomenal that way. It's been a lot of fun. So selfishly, it's just a lot of fun. I'm glad people happen to listen or watch. That's great. But I think I'm going to do it anyway,
So without this show, how would you feel? Did you feel supported by your family? Would you feel lonely? Would you feel desperate? Like, I'm curious what the consensus is.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think I do get support from the family, but they can only support, how do you say it? Like, they can't support from like my view of things. Like, for instance, if I asked you, Ben, for support, like you said, if we did live close, I think that support would feel different than a family member that doesn't have what I have, right? They can only go so far with their support, like their knowledge, their understanding. And then it kind of, I don't want to say tails off, because it's not their fault. It's just that's as far as they can do. And they don't want to come across as feeling, sympathetic to like pity. And that I get a sense. So I get a lot of, he can do it, but I get like if I'm doing something physical, for instance, around the house and my wife's watching, I can tell she's watching to see where is his limit and where do I need to step in or not, and then, so I know I have support that way, but like mental support, those kinds of things, I think I would have to reach different directions for sure, because I just don't think it would work out so well. And I'm more of this seems to surprise some people, and that I guess is a compliment. I'm not very positive by nature. I've learned with positive, you want to be more positive, you need to surround yourself with positivity, positive people, positive thinking. So like I listen to a ton of John Gordon, a positive speaker. I listen to those types of things and trying to digest things that make me feel better and teach myself how to find positive, not Pollyanna positive, like, oh, gee whiz, this is okay. No, it's got to be real. It can't be false. But yeah, I know it's a long answer, but I think
it's so important.
I think it'd be totally different. Yeah.
Every word is important, and it's very clear. And I just hope for everybody who's listening that there's some kind of connection to know that this is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. It's something that you got to cope with and deal with. And some can and some can't. And I get all those stages, I I've talked to a lot of people where they just came out with what they have, but they've known of it, for maybe 10 years, and it's just taken that long to address it in the way. And there's no right or wrong. It just like I just chose to be loud about it, like literally within days. Like I'm like, all right, I think I gotta announce what's going on here. I'm not gonna hide it. I'm not gonna hide from it. I think I'm just gonna hit it with a frying pan to steal your words, like head on. So yeah, but everybody's different, So
I'm curious about your symptoms. I noticed the top of your hair is like clean, so you must still be able to wash your hair really well.
I can.
You have to do the thing where you like.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I got to do that. I wash it really with just my left hand because my right hand's holding my elbow, Or
have you ever tried propping them up against the edge of the shower?
Kind
of works.
I can't because like the distance, you know what I mean? Like the situation in there. I guess I could if I didn't face the water. You know what I mean? But
no, you have to go.
Everybody's in my shower with me. How does this bath work?
We need like FSHD hack show.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's like all these things that I've done to adapt, I've been doing for years, long before any diagnosis. Even like closing the bottom drawer of my dresser, I can't shove it with just my arm. I have to, my hand is on it. Yep. And my knee hits my hand or my elbow into it. And I'm like, no one else does that. Or my mom would say, oh, that's why you get your jacket on weird. I go, what? I go, what do you mean? Because you flip it and all this.
Exactly.
Like I need like room. Like I cannot be in like a tight restaurant area and then you put your jacket on before you leave. Nope, I got to do that in like the vestibule, man. I'm surely going to knock over a waiter or something when they're carrying a tray of food. It'll be embarrassing. So,
my wife has these origami birds hanging from her ceiling, and I have to flip a coat on like this. I have knocked every single one of those off.
Yep.
Are all of the dishes on like your top shelf? Well, you're tall. I'm not. Are they all chipped on the top?
No, actually, those are okay. But my wife, she's sneaky like that. Like she's the one that organized the kitchen.
Oh, well.
But she was purposeful on putting things without telling me. Like, I put the heavy stuff down here because I know you'll have a hard time. She just puts them there.
Can I give my wife's phone number?
Sure.
She sounds really sweet and thoughtful about this.
Like she's like that. But yet she's not, she's not like, she doesn't coddle. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Like, it's just, this is life. This is what we have. So I always tell people, like, sometimes, like your spouse, your loved one with you, like sometimes they have it too, to some degree. They're living with it. They're living with it every day. They see it and they see.
Like secondhand. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
like, how do they cope? Right. And then how do they cope? Because it's a whole different viewpoint.
That is a whole different viewpoint. I really appreciate you saying that because it's really something to think about that I haven't really considered, which is pretty inconsiderate. But she is such an angel and she cares so much. But if you don't really know, then you're only it's just all guesswork, and it's
Oh yeah.
It would be really nice if we'd all just be able to have these, just sort of ongoing conversations about practicality. Just
right. Every day.
Philosophical, scary things, but just the practicality of it all. She's redesigning her kitchen, and I'm insisting that there's drawers instead of cabinets because I'd much rather drop a dish down than
Yes.
And I mean, I'm 5'4", so I'm like I'm like a cat before they jump. I have to study the shelf and then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, everything you got to think about it. Like, I realize that there's this chore I have to do in the house. We have our air conditioner in the attic for all stupid places that it's at. And I have to go get the air filter out of it, before the winter.
Yes.
So I get up in the attic. No, I have to crawl in the attic space.
Oh.
I go up the ladder and then I'm half hunched over because the roof line is right there. And I'm walking all the way to the middle of the house up there, pull it out. And then I get back. And when I get back to the opening, and my wife is waiting there because she's like, you're not going up there by yourself. So I throw the little filter out or whatever, and then I look down the hole that I have to like try to navigate the steps back down or the ladder back down. And she's looking at me. She goes, what's the matter? I'm like, I'm trying to figure out the 5 steps it's going to take for me to get back down to a seated position, swing my leg into the ladder without falling down the hole. And it took me a couple of minutes. And I had anxiety. Like, if I take one false step, dude, I can't recover to stop the next step. Right. So it's like, you have to think ahead. and try to plan. And
Yes.
some people don't realize that. You know, like I've been in certain situations where I have to pause for a minute, and I've had my friends go, "What's the matter?" Like, I got to think this through. Hang on. You know, like you can
Yeah.
do that, I can't. So like I have to figure this out, because you can like feel the limitation coming. You can feel where you're going to hit some resistance in whatever you have to do, and then you have to figure, okay, how am I going to adapt? I
Yeah.
rarely ever think I can't do it. I think, how can I do it and work around whatever this is, you know?
Mhm.
And I think I've always said that people with FSHD are master adapters. You know,
Good
I'm
point.
surprised we all have not invented something together, you know, like it would change the world, right? Because I think that we are just, that's the way our brains think, you know, just by instinct. We have to still have to do it. Just how can we do it? We can't do it like you, but
Exactly.
we got to do it this way. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're cheap like me, the inventions are really crazy. You should
Well,
see
they
my
might be
car seat. It's just it's
really, well, you should patent it. Yeah.
hilarious.
Well, like, wait,
So,
whatever it takes.
so what we're talking about, we were talking about art and music, which is a
Yeah.
great springboard into the greatest, the finest art of all, and that's the art of living, and that's I'm
True.
glad this conversation turned into the greatest art form.
Yeah.
It took
Conversation,
you as a great
sharing.
interviewer to do that.
Yeah. It's you know, it's nothing to do with me. It's always the guests. I always say the shows are great because of the people I talk to. So this was another one. I loved it. It was a blast. This was great. So
Thank you.
thanks, Ben, for spending some time with us. Always insightful. I got to get you on the schedule in 2025. We got to get more deep into these conversations when we got more time.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do
I
it.
might just call you next Wednesday anyway.
That sounds good. Let's do it.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you.
You
and
too.
everybody.
You too, Ben.
So here we are in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest 2014, up here in the Continental Gallery. And there's a great thing that happens here at night and in the daytime, and that's swimming at Barton Springs. I don't know how many people come here to do that. Who swims at Barton Springs? I like to swim at night, and I like to think about, I like to look down with a mask, and I like to look down at all the mountains and the trees, because it's the only time I get to fly. And so this is a little song about that. When I wave my arm, I go up in the air, because I took a chance when others wouldn't dare. All by myself into the clouds, feeling the air pulling back the shroud.
land on my feet when the day is done. When I wave my arms, when